The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we know, has been smashing all sorts of sales records, but there's more to it as it continues its rampage atop of these sales charts worldwide. And I also wanted to get into another piece of information that was incredibly interesting from Mr. Aonuma himself when it comes to the future of The Legend of Zelda. But before we get into that, guys, please make sure you enter into our giveaway. We've got a Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch Collector's Edition that we are going to be giving away. All you got to do to enter is subscribe, hit the like button, notification, and check out the link in the description where you can go on the community tab and vote on your favorite Tears of the Kingdom ability. Drop a comment there, and I will pick a random winner on June 1st. Now let's go ahead and jump right back into this because we know that Tears of the Kingdom is officially out 1+ weeks now at this point. I got my copy on Thursday, May 11th at 9 p.m. PT. So we've been playing for about a week or a bit more. Some people have been playing a bit longer, but right now at this point, Tears of the Kingdom hype is still going incredibly strong. Sometimes you see a drop off with some of these big titles that have came out in recent years after a week or so. People just kind of say, okay, moving on to the next thing, or you see the sales kind of dip down on Amazon or other places. And while that's natural, obviously the launch week is going to be the biggest week for most of the new releases. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is still tearing it up across the world on sales charts. Now, what I've tracked here is the Amazon bestsellers here in the US and also in Japan. And from what you can see, still on the bestsellers, it's #1, beating out the PSN gift cards, beating out the Xbox gift cards, Nintendo eShop, but also Nintendo did an incredible job. This is another thing at actually having the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch. That system has been available for pre-order on Amazon well beforehand. People can get theirs, and everybody that I know that pre-ordered on Amazon actually got their Zelda OLED systems, and you can still pick it up. It's still available to buy. There was some concern that it's going to be limited or there's going to be issues. We've seen that before with some of these special edition consoles, but not with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo did a great job on the supply line and making sure there was enough, because they've had issues before, and I was just a little bit concerned at times that they weren't going to be able to supply enough, but I was completely wrong on that. Now, if you go over to the new releases, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely dominating it on Amazon here in the US and also in Japan. Tears of the Kingdom #1, actually $68, went down a little bit in price on Amazon. Tears of the Kingdom OLED, Tears of the Kingdom Digital Edition, Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition, Tears of the Kingdom Pro Controller. Everything is firing on all cylinders. Heck, people are even buying those Tears of the Kingdom Zelda amiibo cards because they're not going to buy all those different amiibo so they can get those outfits and everything. It's pretty cool to see what's happening and to see how much more popular The Legend of Zelda is, which is just great because I've been playing this series for 30+ years now at this point, and I personally feel, despite some people saying, oh, it's kind of lost its essence from what it was supposed to be, they're only going off of what their childhood was and what they played, which was Ocarina of Time and going up. Myself, Legend of Zelda 1, that was my big game, and it feels to me like Tears of the Kingdom is a natural and huge evolution of what they're doing with The Legend of Zelda, the original, and also The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, maybe even a little bit of Zelda 2 with some of the hidden RPG mechanics that are completely in Tears of the Kingdom. But this game is phenomenal in that sense. But I also wanted to go over another thing when it comes to the future of the Legend of Zelda series, because Mr. Aonuma has talked about wanting to free the players of restrictions in terms of making future titles. So it does seem like they are going to go towards more of the open world atmosphere when it comes to The Legend of Zelda. Now, in the interview with GameInformer, here was the question asked to Mr. Aonuma about the future of the series. On that note, I think that people share the viewpoint that Ocarina of Time was kind of the starting point for one era of Zelda games, laying the foundation for several titles that came after it. Do you see Breath of the Wild as establishing the new blueprint or foundation of the next several Legend of Zelda games for years to come? Here's what Mr. Aonuma had to say. With Ocarina of Time, I think it's correct to say that it did kind of create a format for a number of titles in the franchise that came after it, but in some ways, that was a little bit restricting for us. While we always aim to give the player freedoms of certain kinds, there were certain things that format didn't really afford in giving people freedom. Of course, the series continued to evolve after Ocarina of Time, but I think it's also fair to say now that we've arrived at Breath of the Wild and the new type of more open play and freedom that it affords, yeah, I think it's correct to say that it has created a new kind of format for the series to proceed from. So that's where people are talking about them not really going back to the older formula of Zelda games, which was restrictive. So for those who don't know, in older Zelda games like Ocarina of Time, for example, N64 and up, you'd essentially have a hub area like Hyrule to where you can kind of explore and do some things. It wasn't really that interesting or great. Then you had the towns, but then you had the big dungeons, and you usually have to do them in order. Now, some Zelda games let you do them kind of out of order, but for the most part, you go here, you get this item, you do this thing, you use the boss to beat that thing, and then once you have that item, now you can explore somewhere else. And it kind of goes in that path or that fashion. A lot of the times, the items were kind of something to where you didn't really need when it comes to money, didn't really need that at times as well. There were only certain situations. Heck, half the time you'd have a wallet and you'd get money and it'd be like, oh, well, you don't have a big enough wallet, so the money would be wasted because that's just how money was in Zelda. So it wasn't so resource management or resource heavy as Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom have done, especially with Tears of the Kingdom, creating a real economy around fighting enemies, beating enemies, getting their horns or getting their weapons, fusing, and actually using that type of combat to fuel the gameplay and the exploration in the game at your own pace. So I do feel personally that this is the right call. I think that Breath of the Wild showed that people actually want to have a more open-ended experience, free from the restrictions that previous Zelda games did. And I think that Tears of the Kingdom, with its 10 million units in 3 days, absolutely shows that that's probably the format that you want to do going forward. Now, just like Tears of the Kingdom, you can add in some of that flavor or that formula from previous games. There's dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, so you can make a next Zelda game where it's open-ended in Hyrule and there's different things that you can do, but make it a bit more condensed and kind of make those dungeons to where you can play them in any order and make them a bit more traditional in that sense. So it's not like they can't take certain aspects or certain things from previous Zelda games and incorporate it more or change the style in terms of what they're trying to do. Now, obviously, Mr. Aonuma is not going to give away all of their secrets and everything that's happening for the next Zelda game. This one just launched, but I'm pretty sure, just like Mr. Fujibayashi said, that they have some other ideas that they're cooking up, or they already have some ideas that they're cooking up for the next Zelda game. But it's probably going to be a while before we see something like that. But for me personally, I think that this is absolutely the right call. It kind of takes me back to back in the day, like when I was younger and I played The Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda. That open-endedness of the gameplay was what Zelda was founded on. That was the original roots and where they went back to in order to create The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It was that. A lot of people have it kind of mixed up because they grew up with Ocarina of Time and they think that was the roots. And yes, that was part of it. That's what brought Zelda to even more fans after the NES and Super Nintendo era. However, it was not the origins of the Zelda franchise. The origins of the Zelda franchise was open-ended gameplay. It was not, here's this dungeon, you do this, you do this, you do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that stuff is awesome. Like, Ocarina of Time is fantastic, one of my favorites. I love Wind Waker, but I feel that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, respectively, give you so many more opportunities to do things within its gameplay structure without the restrictions of having this linear path or experience that you have to do. I think that creates a more dynamic gameplay experience. I think that you can incorporate what they've done before even more seamlessly and better in Legend of Zelda future games if you base it off of the model from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that you can create something even bigger and better and evolve it even more based off of what they've done. If you completely go back to the formula of Ocarina of Time or the formula of Majora's Mask or some of these older ones, I think that you're going to lose out on a lot of fans in terms of new people who are now playing Legend of Zelda at this point. I think it'd be one of the worst moves that they could do. Still incorporate some things from those games, still have the cool dungeons like they did and even integrate them a bit better and do a bit more things with that. but do not lose what makes the essence or core of what made Legend of Zelda into the 30 million seller range. We're talking about more than double the previous best-selling Zelda games, more than double than that. So I think that with Tears of the Kingdom selling 10 million in 3 days, it's going to be hard for them to turn their back on that style. So I can see what Mr. Aonuma is saying here. I understand it completely, but I also understand the questions from GameInformer when it comes to talking about different things with what old fans like and maybe alienating them a little bit. Like, I completely understand that, but at the same time, Nintendo just has to do a better job of integrating what the previous Zelda games did into this new formula and format, which they're slowly doing. We've only got 2 games in this new style of format. I think they're going to get better with it, but then also evolve things and give people new ways to play, which Tears of the Kingdom has completely shattered the mold for open world games again at this point. I've never played anything like it. It's the best open world game that I've ever played, and it might be the best game that I've ever played, which I did talk about in my recent incredible review / first impressions of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So check that out. What do you guys think about everything here that we discussed from The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? What's going on with the sales? And also what Mr. Aonuma said in the future of the franchise? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please make sure you check out the link in the description. Enter in to our Nintendo Switch Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition. Subscribe, hit that like button, notification bell, drop a comment below, and check out some of the other videos right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next video. Peace.